Have you ever found yourself, like, really thinking about where defiance comes from? Or, the seeds of rebellion? Or even the huge personal cost behind a revolution? Today, we're doing just that. We're diving into the raw, formative experiences of a character whose cynicism, well, we now know it hides this incredibly deep, unhealed wound. We're talking, of course, about Haymitch Abernathy.
That's right. For years, Haymitch was, the enigma. Often drunk, yeah, but undeniably shrewd. The District 12 mentor everyone sort of knew or thought they knew. But with Sunrise on the Reaping, the new novel, we can finally peel back those layers, uncover the, frankly, brutal genesis story that made him who he is. And our focus today is that pivotal 50th Hunger Games, a year burned into Panem's history as a second quarter quell.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive, using all the amazing detail from Sunrise on the Reaping, is really to light up Haymitch's journey. Trace him from this defiant kid to the scarred victor we recognize. We'll get into the unique terrors of his games, unravel the trauma that shaped him. We want to pull out those key details, the surprising facts, those aha moments that make his story so compelling. It's not just what happened, right? It's why it mattered so much, why it was so foundational for, well, everything that happened later in Panem. Okay, so let's jump right in, because the 50th Hunger Games, it wasn't just another games. It was, like you said, the second quarter quell. Can you maybe unpack what that title really means? What was the impact?
Yeah, the quarter quells were always meant to be bigger, more significant. They weren't just the yearly games, they were anniversaries, often tied to, putting down the districts in the past. Big, nasty reminders of capital power. And the 50th, the second quell, was particularly cruel. The rule was simple: double the tributes from each district.
Double. So not one boy and one girl.
No. 2 boys, 2 girls. Per district. Which immediately rockets the number of competitors from 24, which is already horrific, to 48.
48. Wow.
Yeah.
Pause on that. Facing 47 other kids instead of 23, the odds just plummet. It's almost unimaginable.
Exactly. And it wasn't just for show, not really. It was calculated. Designed by the Capitol to just crank up the despair across Panem, grind down any little bit of hope left. Think about the districts. Knowing twice as many of your kids, your neighbors' kids, were going to be sent to die that year. For you, the listener, it just sets the stakes astronomically higher than, say, Katniss's games. It really hammers home the systemic cruelty baked into the Hunger Games. It wasn't just punishment, it was psychological torture on a mass scale. More tributes meant more chaos, a bloodier start, faster deaths, just designed to break spirits quicker.
And before all that, before he's thrust onto this stage, Haymitch's life was, well, pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
Pure District 12. We learned a bit about his early life.
Oh, definitely. His life before the games was pure District 12 poverty. Stark. He lived with his widowed mom and his younger brother, Sid. Conditions were tough. Scraping by was the daily reality. Their main way of getting by, and this is kind of key, was illegal moonshine distilling.
Moonshine. Right.
Yeah.
So already operating outside the rules just to survive.
Exactly. It wasn't a big political statement, not then. It was just necessary defiance. A way to get a little income in a district the Capitol deliberately kept starved. It was survival.
That really connects into the whole identity of District 12, doesn't it? Hardship, making do, the quiet, stubborn resilience. It's a district of survivors, not prosperity.
Absolutely. And that background, it's crucial for understanding Haymitch. It reinforces that image of D12 life is cheap, hardship is normal, and small rebellions are just how you live. It sets the stage for his character. He came from a world where survival was never guaranteed, where you had to be smart, maybe a little stubborn. It explains his resilience, but also, his vulnerability. Long before the arena, he knew desperation.
But even in that grim reality, there was a spark of something else. A bit of hope, maybe a future, tied to someone named Lenore Dove.
Yes, Lenore. His girlfriend. And her introduction is fascinating because it ties into the deeper lore of District 12. She was part of the Covey family.
Wait, the Covey? Like Lucy Graybeard's family from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes?
The very same. It's this amazing connection showing how these families, their music, their spirit maybe persisted through generations, even under the Capitol's boot. It adds this whole cyclical layer to D12 history.
Wow, okay. And she gives them something, right? A gift.
She does, a flint striker. But it wasn't just any flint striker. It was beautifully made, shaped like a snake and a bird, intertwined into a C. For Covey.
That's incredibly symbolic, the snake and the bird.
Totally. It represented their bond, their hopes. And for Lenore, crucially, it represented a future without the games. That C was like a little symbol of freedom, peace, connection to that resilient Covey legacy, a promise of what could be.
But Haymitch, I couldn't quite grasp that, could he? Even then, there was this sense of, resignation in him.
That's the heartbreaking part. Lenore held on to these dreams of a life free from the capital. Haymitch, though, he was already sort of ground down by it. He'd lived in D12 long enough, he couldn't really imagine a world without the games hanging over them. And that contrast, even before the reaping, it says so much. It shows the psychological damage the capital inflicted, how it could just smother hope, create this fatalism. Even in young people, it wasn't just physical control, it was mental.
And speaking of control, the reaping for the 50th Games, it was twisted, really publicly cruel. And this escort, Drusilla Sickle, sounds like a piece of work.
Oh, she absolutely is. Portrayed as someone who just relished her power, enjoyed inflicting the suffering. Her role wasn't just official, it was actively malicious. She was there to maximize the terror, make a spectacle of capital control. They chose people like her for a reason.
So, with double the tributes needed, who did she pick initially? What do we know about them?
For the girls, Sickle chose Luella McCoy, who was only 13, and Haymitch actually knew her, since she was born.
Oh, man. 13, that adds immediate weight.
Huge emotional weight. And alongside her was Maisie Donner. Wealthier, described as kind of haughty initially, but she becomes incredibly important later. Tragically so. For the boys, it was Wyatt Callow and Woodbine Chance.
Woodbine Chance. Okay, I remember that name from the outline. His reaction.
Oh.
That sets things in motion, doesn't it?
It really does. The moment his name is called, Woodbine just panics. Totally understandable. He tries to bolt, run from the square.
And the peacekeepers?
Instant, brutal public execution right there. Shot down in front of everyone. The whole square just erupted into chaos, pure terror. And in that chaos, Lenore, being who she was, tried to comfort Woodbine's mother, who was obviously falling apart.
And that's where Haymitch steps in. We see that protective side, that glimpse of the mentor he becomes.
Exactly. Sees Lenore, the person he loves, potentially in the line of fire from the peacekeepers. He doesn't think, he just acts. Throws himself forward, takes a rifle butt strike that was heading straight for her.
Wow, pure instinct.
Pure instinct. Self-sacrifice. Such a powerful foreshadowing, isn't it, of him later shielding Katniss and Peeta? It shows that protective core was always there, deep down, even before the trauma worked it.
But that act of defiance, that protective move, Drusilla Sickle jumps on it immediately, right, to make an example of him.
Oh, absolutely. As direct punishment for intervening, for defying them right there, Sickle immediately calls Haymitch's name, reaps him as Woodbine's replacement. And the cruelest part, she apparently said it was staged. For the Capitol cameras, a deliberate spectacle to crush any spirit, any idea of fighting back, his selflessness twisted into a public condemnation.
God, and it's right then, in the middle of all that horror, we see someone unexpected, Plutarch Heavensbee.
Yeah, this is where the story starts weaving in those future threads. Plutarch Heavensbee, future head game maker, future rebel leader. He's there, but not as a game maker yet. He's a cameraman.
A cameraman. Really? That early?
That early. And the source implies he subtly, kinda, showed some sympathy towards Haymitch, a flicker of something human in that awful moment. It's our first big clue, really, that the Capitol isn't just one solid block of cruelty, that there were dissenters, plots brewing, even way back then. And Haymitch, like most tributes, was denied a proper goodbye. But Plutarch, in a really risky move, actually helps arrange a quick, tearful moment between Haymitch and Lenore.
So Plutarch was already playing a longer game.
Seems like it. That wasn't just kindness, it was strategic. Building trust, setting the stage. Maybe he saw something in Haymitch even then, a potential spark.
Okay, so Haymitch is on the train, heading to the Capitol, leaving D12 behind. And this journey is where he starts connecting with others, future allies.
Yes, the train ride becomes this sort of incubator for future alliances. His assigned mentors are two names we definitely recognize, Wires from District 3.
Ticks, right. Wires.
That's her, known for her sharp mind. And Mags from District 4. A seasoned victor, knows the games inside out. Having them as mentors immediately connects Haymitch to this network of people who would later be crucial to the rebellion. It shows the resistance wasn't just isolated sparks. People were quietly connecting, sharing knowledge, even within the Capitol system. They saw his potential.
And he meets BT2, another massive figure from District 3. His reason for hating the Capitol is really personal.
Deeply personal. BT, the genius inventor, Volts, as he becomes known, he enters the story already carrying this immense grief and anger. His son, Ampert, was reaped.
Not just randomly.
No. Explicitly as punishment for BT's own past acts of defiance. The Capitol basically weaponized his son against him.
That's chilling. How many others did they do that to?
Exactly. It shows their system of collective punishment using family ties to control people. But ironically, it backfired, didn't it? It just fueled BT's determination, turned his personal tragedy into this driving force for strategic revenge. His son's death demanded a response.
And BT, being BT, comes up with a plan. A sabotage plan. Something way beyond just surviving the game.
Oh, it's incredibly audacious. Pure BT. He recruits Haymitch into this covert plot. The idea: detonate explosives hidden inside the tribute token.
Inside the tokens, how?
Cleverly engineered devices, apparently, designed to somehow interface with the arena's central computers when detonated. The goal was to cause a massive system overload, flood the systems, disrupt the game maker's control, basically throw the whole arena into chaos.
Wow. So not just trying to win, but actively attacking the Capitol's control system.
Exactly. It's a huge step up from previous acts of defiance. It's organized technological resistance, hitting them where they thought they were strongest, their tech. It showed they weren't untouchable.
So even in training, these alliances are forming. Not just for survival, but for this.
Yeah.
Bigger purpose, like a quiet little revolution starting right there.
Totally. Haymitch, using his survival smarts, forms this newcomers coalition, pulls in Empert, BT's son, Maisie, and Wyatt. They're the non-careers, the underdogs. And they're naturally up against the career tributes from the richer districts, the ones trained for this who think they own the games.
So it mirrors the whole Panem class struggle right there in the training center.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of the bigger conflict, privileged versus impoverished. And these alliances weren't just about survival, they were about resisting that system that pits them against each other.
And Plutarch, the cameraman. He gets more involved here, pushing Haymitch towards the rebellion.
This is where Plutarch really shows his hand, subtly. He's clearly part of this plot now, and he continues building that trust with Haymitch. He arranges another secret call, this time with Lenore.
Another call.
Exactly. Risky. But it's a calculated move, giving Haymitch that lifeline, that connection back home. It's huge for Haymitch. It firms up his resolve, makes it about more than just him surviving. It's about fighting for that future Lenore talked about. It shows how Plutarch used personal connection, empathy, trust as tools for resistance, turning despair into determination. He was cultivating a rebel leader, not just observing a tribute.
Okay, training's over, the plotting's done, the games begin. And like all quells, the arena is special.
Yeah.
Especially horrible.
Oh, yeah. The 50th Games Arena is described as desolate, vast, unforgiving, and populated with new mutts, created just for this quell, these large, terrifying pink birds. Unsettling just to look at, apparently, let alone face. It just screams capital power, doesn't it? Their ability to engineer new horrors each time, keep everyone off balance, maintain that constant fear. It's psychological warfare through landscape design.
And Haymitch, even facing that, he manages to work an angle, play the cameras in his own way.
He does. It shows incredible shrewdness for a teenager under that pressure. He adopts this rascal persona for the interviews. Defiant, cheeky, almost insolent.
Why? To annoy them.
Partly, maybe, but mostly it seems to get noticed, to attract sponsors. He understood, even then, that being forgettable was a death sentence. He knew how to play the media game, even if his way was rebellious, but it cost him. He got a really low score from the game makers, direct punishment for not playing their game properly. But it foreshadows his later skill as a mentor, manipulating sponsors, understanding public perception. He learned early.
So the games themselves, brutal, obviously. Alliances shifting constantly.
Utterly brutal, constant pressure, paranoia. Alliances formed and broke constantly between the newcomers and the careers. Fragile things. But amidst all that, something real forms between Haymitch and Maisie Donner. That girl who seemed haughty at first. They grow close, rely on each other, share moments, build trust.
Oh, no. Knowing this is Haymitch's story, that doesn't end well, does it?
It doesn't. It's tragically cut short. Maisie is killed, attacked by those mutated pink birds.
Oh, the birds.
Yeah. And the book describes Haymitch's grief as profound. It's another huge loss, another layer of trauma piled on. Each death, especially someone he connected with, it just chips away at him, hardens him more, pushing him towards the cynical survivor we know.
And then, the plan. The sabotage. The moment BT and Haymitch have been working towards, that must have been incredibly tense.
Absolutely. The culmination of all that secret planning. Haymitch triggers the explosives hidden in the tokens.
What happened?
Chaos. Pure chaos. Explosions, lights, sound. The arena itself starts flooding, systems going haywire. And crucially, the Capitol's central control. Disrupted. knocked offline. This is massive. It's not just finding a glitch. It's a direct technological assault on the game's infrastructure. Unprecedented. It proves the Capitol isn't infallible. They can be hit where it hurts.
And Haymitch uses this chaos
Yeah.
to win in a way that
That's
sounds...
correct.
This is the really cool connection. Haymitch wins by exploiting that chaos. The game makers are scrambling. The arena's unpredictable. He uses the malfunctioning force field, bounces a rock off it, which ricochets back and kills the last career tribute.
Wait, like Katniss, with the arrow in the force field.
Almost exactly. It's like a mirror image. It shows Haymitch's genius, his ability to see and use the system's weaknesses against itself. It's not just luck, it's tactical brilliance. And for you, the listener, it reframes Katniss's famous move, doesn't it? It wasn't totally out of the blue. Her mentor had already written the playbook, in a way, a blueprint for defiance using the arena itself.
So he wins. Victor of the 50th Hunger Games, second quarter quell.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not a happy ending, not a triumphant return. It's tainted.
Profoundly tainted. Pyrrhic victory doesn't even cover it, because his win wasn't just survival, it was rebellion, a public slap in the face to the Capitol's power. And they don't take that lightly. The source is clear. His return to District 12 isn't a celebration, it's devastating. It's the start of a whole new kind of suffering. His victory cost him everything.
And the final blow, the real horror, comes directly from President Snow.
Yeah.
This is what breaks him.
This is the moment that shatters Haymitch's world completely, defines everything after. He finds out that Snow, purely for revenge, pure calculated cruelty for Haymitch's defiance, ordered his family's home burned down,
No.
with his mother and his younger brother, Sid, inside. They were killed.
Oh my God.
It's the ultimate cruelty, targeted punishment designed to break his spirit, show everyone that defiance leads to annihilation. That's Snow's message, chillingly ruthless, extinguishing any light, any love, to keep control.
And somehow, it gets worse. There's that brief moment with Lenore, a reunion, only for it to be snatched away again.
Yeah, it's almost unbearably cruel timing. Amidst that devastation, he finds out Lenore's been released from prison, a tiny, tiny sliver of unexpected hope in his personal hell. They meet secretly. In a meadow, a brief, poignant reunion, an embrace, a fleeting glimpse of what might have been. It's fragile, beautiful, and utterly deceptive.
Because Snow wasn't done.
Yeah.
Even that little bit of peace.
Yeah.
He takes it away.
This is the final twist of the knife, the ultimate betrayal, orchestrated by Snow. Haymitch, completely unaware, shares some gumdrops with Lenore, candy that Snow had arranged to be poisoned.
He feeds her poison candy. He doesn't know.
She has no idea. She dies. In his arms. And he realizes he was the unwitting instrument of her death. That guilt, it's unimaginable. But her last words, they become his directive. His reason to keep going, maybe. She urges him, with her dying breath, to end the Capitol's reign.
Yeah.
That's it, he's lost everyone, consumed by guilt. That moment shapes his entire future, twists him into the man we meet later.
And that explains it. The Haymitch we know. The immediate dive into alcoholism, it wasn't just him being difficult, it was a coping mechanism.
Absolutely. All that trauma layered on top of each other, losing his family, then Lenore, by his own hand, essentially. It leads straight to the drinking. And the self-isolation, it's not just cynicism, it's presented as this tragic, warped form of protection. He genuinely believes anyone he gets close to will be targeted by the Capitol because of him. So pushing people away, the drinking, it's this desperate, self-destructive attempt to shield others from Snow's wrath, to stop anyone else dying because of him. For you, the listener, it transforms him, doesn't it? It's not just a witty, drunk mentor. It's a profoundly wounded survivor, carrying this unbearable weight of loss and guilt. His shield is built from the wreckage of his life.
Okay, stepping back, connecting this story to the bigger picture of Panem. What larger ideas does Sunrise on the Reaping bring out about how the Capitol actually controlled people?
It really digs into this idea of implicit submission. Like the philosopher David Hume talked about how power works. The Capitol didn't just use soldiers or the games. They created this whole atmosphere where people just accepted their control, almost without thinking it was expected. But Haymitch's story, it's the counter-argument. He starts out resigned, right? Can't imagine life without the games. But he moves to active defiance. He breaks free from that implicit submission. His journey shows you have to consciously reject that reality they impose.
And it definitely goes deeper into propaganda and media manipulation, which we know was huge for the Capitol.
Oh, yeah. It shows how the reaping itself was, like, directed, staged for the cameras, turning suffering into entertainment, or worse, a warning. Every public moment is a performance. But crucially, it also shows Plutarch, even back then, subtly messing with that narrative for the rebellion, creating cracks in the facade. It shows the media war started long before Patmos. Plutarch was already a player, sowing dissent from the inside.
So Haymitch's whole experience, his defiance, it really is like a blueprint for the revolution, foreshadowing Katniss.
Totally. His defiance, how he used the arena, that victory, it's foundational. It showed the capital's tool of oppression could be turned against them. His win wasn't just survival, it was insubordination that set a precedent. Katniss followed in his footsteps, amplifying that same spirit.
And the book adds so much to the lore, especially D12. What are some cool connections back to the original trilogy that fans will pick up on?
It's packed with them. We find out the origins of the Mockingjay pen are tied to this era, to Haymitch's games. It gives the symbol even deeper roots and defiance connected to the Covey. It also hints at connections to Katniss's father, suggesting maybe a shared lineage of quiet resistance in D12. And Plutarch's role, obviously, becomes much clearer. His early moves set the stage for everything he did later in the Mockingjay Rebellion. The revolution had deep roots.
In all this backstory. It just gives Haymitch so much more depth. His cynicism, his harshness, it all clicks into place now.
It really lets you empathize. Why was he so jaded? Well, look what he went through. Losing everyone, mom, brother, the love of his life, partly by his own hand. It explains that protective cynicism. It wasn't just a bad attitude, it was a shield, built from trauma and guilt. And that shared trauma, that understanding of loss and the cost of fighting back, that's what connects him so deeply to Katniss, right? They both carry that weight. You see him not just as the drunk mentor, but as this deeply wounded survivor.
And the book itself, Sunrise on the Reaping, it's been huge since it came out. A massive success.
Phenomenal is the word. Released March 18th, 2025. Sold 1.5 million copies worldwide in the first week. That's huge, even for this series. Outpaced the earlier books, apparently. Shows how much appetite there was for this story, for Haymitch's story.
And it's not just the book, it's becoming a whole thing, right? Audiobook, movie.
Absolutely. The audiobook, narrated by Jefferson White, got great reviews. And yeah, the big news, a film adaptation is already lined up for 2026.
Wow, fast.
Very. So these other versions are just going to expand its reach even more, bring Haymitch's story to a massive audience, really cement it as a key part of the Hunger Games world.
And the fans must be going wild. Lots of discussion, theories online.
Oh, totally. YouTube, fan forums, everywhere. Exploded with reactions, analysis, people connecting the dots between this and the original trilogy. It sparked this whole new wave of conversation, which is great. We hope you listening join in, share your thoughts. There's so much to unpack.
So to wrap up our deep dive today,
Yeah.
we've traced Haymitch Abernathy's truly incredible and honestly heartbreaking journey through the 50th Hunger Games. From that manipulated reaping through his defiant survival in the arena to Snow's absolutely horrific revenge that cost him everything. Mother, brother, Lenore. Scarred, but somehow not completely destroyed.
Yeah, we've really seen the staggering psychological price of victory under a regime like the Capitol's, and uncovered those hidden roots of the rebellion, showing how the Mockingjay song, that symbol of resistance, had this longer, more painful, more personal history tied directly to Haymitch's trauma and sacrifice.
Which leads us to maybe a final thought to chew on. What does Haymitch's brutal origin story really tell us about the true cost of winning against tyranny? And how does that kind of deep, unhealed trauma actually fuel future revolutions, shaping the very people who end up leading them?
But it doesn't end entirely in darkness. There's that epilogue detail, a poignant little glimmer. Years later, after the revolution, Haymitch finally tells Katniss and Peeta everything. His story, his guilt, and they give him goose eggs to raise in Lenore's honor. It's this small, fragile symbol of peace, maybe? New life, memory, maybe even a hint of forgiveness, showing that even after all that devastation, maybe, just maybe, some fragile hope can eventually take root.